what's up YouTube? One of the greatest mysteries in PoE history have finally been solved, and that is the mystery of how do you know what a timeless jewel actually gives you. Now, a lot of people might be wondering what exactly is a timeless jewel, and a timeless jewel is a Legion jewel that drops from the Legion encounters. And there's 4 different types. There's Elegant Hubris, Militant Faith, Glorious Vanity, and Lethal Pride. When you put it in, the name changes the big notable to something else. So you can see there's a Supreme Ostentation, and before it was Ghost Dance. And it will change the notable to something different depending on what type of jewel it is. If it's a Lethal Pride or Militant Faith, it will not change the notable and it'll give something additional on top. So this one sometimes changes it, and then Lethal Pride gives something on top. For Elegant Hubris, it changes it completely, and it removes all of the travel nodes and makes the price of glory, so it gives nothing. But for this one here, in this example, this one is especially valuable because it gives 80% projectile attack damage. With a massive thread of hope, you can get another 80% projectile attack damage. And then you have 40% rarity here, 40% rarity here, and another 40% rarity somewhere else. So it gives a total of, I think this one gives a total of 120% rarity and 160% projectile attack damage, which is absolutely insane for magic fighting. So now that everyone knows it, this number is 120980, and you can actually search it up on the Path of Exile trade site. So before this thing was cracked, people would have no idea what each jewel was. They would have to buy it, and then they have to divide it themselves, put it into their skill tree, and then search it to see what they actually get. And then once they find the number, they could write it down in a notepad. And then in the future, you can actually create snipes for it and then be able to buy it for really cheap. A lot of people might list it in bulk or just have a random timeless jewel up for sale, and they have no idea how much it's actually worth. So now with the code being cracked and potentially the person releasing the method or method behind it, then now we're able to know exactly what each timeless jewel gives. So let's go see what the actual software looks like, or how it looks like when it's cracked. So this was actually posted on Twitter by, I think this is like one of the developers of PoE. But basically you can see here, this guy has a timeless jewel, and this is a brutal restraint. So he's looking at here, it gives 4% increased maximum life. And then he has some software that allows him to input the number of the jewel or the passive node in stability. So this is the, and then he can choose the jewel type, and then he types in the seed number 5695. And you will see that this one was actually add life, and it gives you result Mariketh notable add life. So now it is potentially possible to know exactly what every single notable is when you plug it into the jewel slot. And they do say they're going to add this to Path of Building, so it'll be interesting to see what actually happens. Now, this was always one of the biggest mysteries because people always know that GGG generated the timeless jewels with some sort of algorithm, but people weren't exactly sure how it was done. And the timeless jewels, like I said, does modify your skill tree in an unpredictable way, and all of it is governed by this number right here, the seed number. So this one is 4025, and this one is 120980. And there are rumors that people would sell a seed list that could be for multiple mirrors, and you would be able to make a bunch of money if you knew the list. So say like this jewel here probably goes for around, I think this jewel I bought for 4050x. In the past, there have been like Glorious Vanities for Aura Stackers that people have paid over 1 meter for. So let's say you were able to snipe it up because you can actually look up these specific seed numbers on the Path of Exile trade site. You could buy it for 1020C, and then you could resell it for a mirror. And it's probably one of the biggest or fastest profit margins you could actually ever have. And another thing about this timeless jewel selling is a lot of people will go on the TFT Discord, and there is a section called Legion Jewel Want to Sell. And you would probably pretty much list out all of the notables and what it was. You would actually include an image and say what it actually gives. So you can see here it's a 10% blast gain. And I don't really know if there's better jewels now because this program is out yet, but you can see here it's an 80% rarity jewel. And people would pretty much just look at it and then just DM you if they want to buy it. Now, the problem with this method is that you can't really trust the seller, so you pretty much have to have them screen share, or you would have to have them let you borrow the jewel, which requires trust on both sides. Now, the funny thing about before this method was discovered was that Mark actually posted on Reddit saying that they've actually never changed what the seed number does in terms that the seed number has always been constant in what they actually gave, because they've never felt the need to actually change it. So right now, they probably will feel the need to change it now that the whole algorithm has been cracked. So it says a system by which the modifications to the tree are determined by the seed has intentionally not been changed since it was introduced, so that the items can continue to function the same way. And they do say if they change it in the future, they could even have legacy jewels with an internal version value. So they do say changes to the tree do change the results, and some potential changes to the tree might not be obvious or visible to players, but those will be rare because the passive skills themselves are inherently one of the inputs. Outside of that, the results of a historic jewel do not change unless its seed does. So even if the passive tree changes, the seed still dictates everything based on what the number actually is. So you might be wondering, what does cracking the code actually mean? And it's actually a lot of technical jargon that unless you're a computer programmer or some sort of developer, it will be kind of confusing. So I'm going to try to put it into layman terms because I don't actually do any programming myself. So I actually had to read the Reddit post and the comments from the people who cracked it a few times to understand exactly what was going on. So right now, the mods are given by throwing them into a blender together. So you have the position of the node. So you can see in the original example, the guy had where the node was on the tree. And then you have the amount of souls written in the item description. And this is the seed value. And then the trick here is you have a hidden global value. And what this hidden global value does is that it allows you to find out the algorithm for predicting the node in PoE. So there's some sort of table. And then once you enter in the position of the node, the amount of souls, and then the hidden global value, which is kind of like a secret key of sorts, you're able to discover what the node is in path of building or on the tree because you put it into this algorithm, and then you're able to find out what the resulting node is. So basically, they had to reverse engineer the hidden global value, and then they're able to use this hidden global value, which unlocks every single timeless jewel. And I know I'm simplifying it a lot more. It's a lot more complicated than that. And it has some technical jargon revolving around like PRNG for randomizing numbers. And it's a lot of reverse engineering. But the way they're able to do this is they hooked into, I think, the game's memory or something with and decompiled the code. And then the algorithm is actually found on the client side. And that is actually a big thing to note because this means that GGG is probably going to be unable to change it and make it so that people aren't able to do this in the future. And what this means is right now it's in a pretty rudimentary stage. And you can see here, like you have to actually manually input the node, and then you have to input the number, and then you have to input the seed number. So it will take a while for someone to actually build a searchable database. But what I think that could happen is that someone could make a searchable database for the jewels, and then you can pretty much list a certain amount of notables, or you can assign a weighting to it. And then you can find out which jewels are actually the best numbers. And then that could lead people to dividing jewels, trying to hit these numbers that are really valuable and selling it for a profit. So this can completely change the landscape of min-maxing builds. A lot of people don't know that timeless jewels are probably one of the biggest power spikes in the game. So you're playing like an attribute stacking build, you could get like double damage, percent strength, like 20% strength or something like that, and 10% double damage, which is an insane amount of damage. For lethal prides, you could also get like 25% double damage, and then like 10% something else, or intimidate on hit. And brutal restraint for dex stackers, you could get a bunch of percent dex. And then even for glorious vanities, you could get a lot of aura effect for aura bots. So it could be insane in terms of changing the whole landscape of min-maxing builds. But it does remain to be seen what GGG will do now that they know that people can reverse engineer, and with knowing the hidden global value, they can actually figure out exactly what every single timeless jewel does. Now, you might be wondering about the legality behind this, and discovering this method is probably definitely against the TOS, as it requires decompiling the game's code while you're running it in memory. And I did try to search it in the, the TOS, and right here you can see when you actually download the game or you download it through Steam, you will agree to this terms of service that says reverse engineer, decompile or disassemble the website material or services, or seeking to establish the technical processes, operations, and communication protocols of the website materials or services through any means, including without limitation, are strictly prohibited. It's pretty much saying they don't want you to figure or decompile and reverse engineer stuff. But at this point in time, it's probably too late. GGG will probably try to change the timeless jewel seeds, but that's not really going to change anything. As discovering how the algorithm or the hidden value is all done through in the client side. So unless they move the whole algorithm over to server side, people will always be able to reverse engineer it and find out exactly what every single timeless jewel seed, how it affects the passive tree. Now, we can take advantage of this right now because right now it's pretty unlikely they're going to change anything. And once it gets released into pod, like they said they will, it will lead to us finding some crazy jewels that might be completely build changing. And I do think that's going to be pretty cool. So say for like a deck stacker or something like that, or even someone who wants a lot of fizz taken as fire, on some jewels, you could pretty much find some crazy jewels. And it is kind of interesting to see what exactly is the limit between of how much double damage you can actually potentially get on a Lethal Pride. Can you actually get like 40% double damage or 50% double damage? I'm not really sure, but maybe we'll be able to find out in the future. But let me know down in the comments below how this will affect you and if you will try to always use a timeless jewel now in your build, because I do think that timeless jewels should pretty much be mandatory in almost every single build. But thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you find more Mirrors, Exalts, and Mage Bloods than me, and see you next time. Bye.